Welcome to our channel. Today we are making rye baguette. A little specialty with wheat and rye. Very delicious. The bread looks like this and sounds crispy. And when you tear it open and take a look inside, we have a nice fluffy crumb here. And as delicious as it looks, it tastes just as good. For our rye baguette, we need wheat flour, rye flour of course, salt, dry yeast, water, and a large wooden spoon. As always, we first mix all the dry ingredients together, in this case the salt with the flour, and also the dry yeast. I fold it in a little, mix it all together, and put it here, in my slightly larger bowl. Now only the cold water is added. And now I will stir the whole thing for a minute, maybe a minute and a half. That's all it takes. It's really just stirring, not kneading. This is very important because this bread is alive. From the time I give it now, during the dough resting period, and because I naturally leave out all the additives here, sugar or things like that, they don't go in at all because it develops wonderfully over time. Aromas can form and all the greens can ferment together. So that's it. It doesn't need to be more than that. You can see how simple the whole thing is. Of course, a sturdy wooden spoon is helpful. Not much, else happens. Now I clean up the side. Naturally. I also scrape the edge a little so that I have everything clean and together. Everything should go into this container. This is how it all looks. Cover it now. And it goes into the fridge for 6 to 8 hours. I really prefer the 8 hours here. By the way, it's a great recipe for an overnight rise. That means making it in the evening and having fresh baguettes in the morning. That's no longer a big effort. So the dough can rest now, and I can take a little break too. This is how the dough looks. After 8 hours of resting in the fridge, you can see it has risen wonderfully. It has fermented well. Since there's rye flour in it, it's even slightly sour, and that's how it should be. The rye flour in the rye baguette ensures that the baguette stays fresh for a very long time. That's a wonderful feature. Characteristic. You can also enjoy it very well on the second day. Just warm it up briefly in the oven. It's something really delicious. I'll take it out now. For that, I need a well-floured work surface. That's important because the dough is naturally soft. That's completely normal. But it is workable. You can handle it. Don't be afraid of it. You'll manage just fine. This is my part. I work it well through what we have here. Nothing gets damaged. And now we divide it into 3 parts. Actually, it makes 3 small baguettes. I don't weigh it, I just do it approximately so that they are almost the same size. Important in this, I now pull and fold the whole thing. I'm making small packages now. I pull the packages together a bit. Press them together a little. This gives the whole dough stability. You can also work with it wonderfully even though it's soft. I already set it aside. Is the next one coming? Pull, hold together, make packages out of it. Simply give the whole thing some structure. And that's all this is. And always have enough flour on your hands as well as on the pieces. Continue with the package. And we can already see that the whole dough already has stability. It is much more stable than with this part here. We do same with third. Also this pulling. And folding is very important. A structure-giving property. The better you do this little preliminary work, the better you can process it later. Now, not much else happens. Now I do the following. I let it rest for a little moment. And I already start building here. The situation in which I want to place the dough pieces, I take a cloth and immediately place here my finished dough pieces, dust the whole thing with some flour. Now I start with this. Always keep your hands floured. Now I adjust and simply pull over and press a little each time. Fold in the ends, press lightly, pull over again. Flour, because otherwise it will stick to you. And now I already start rolling it out. It's also easy to do, not difficult at all. Here I have my seam, I press it a little now and then. And now I roll it to the length I want. Swing it a little bit again. Now my first baguette is ready so that I can place it with the seam up here into the flour. And to have a separation from the others later, I pull my cloth a little. This piece of dough, I will now place the next one right next to it. You can now see how I have wrapped my dough pieces. They will now rest for an hour. This 1 hour is very important. The dough is now developing nicely. I will turn on the oven in 3/4 of an hour. I preheat it to 245 degrees. You also put it in with the temperature and with steam, but I will talk about that again later a bit more in detail, how we will then slide it into the oven. It now has an hour to develop nicely, and in an hour we will continue. The dough pieces have now completed an hour of proofing. I had wrapped them in a cloth. I will now unwrap it, and to show it for the first time, you can see they have risen nicely. I will do the test. You can see that when I press it with my finger here, a small indentation goes down but comes back up, though it is still visible. This is the moment when the dough is just right to be put into the oven. I am now pulling the cloth apart. I do this because I have made a small board here with flour on it, and now I naturally take my first dough piece, which I can take wonderfully like this, and place it in the middle on my baking sheet. Now the floured side comes here. The second one, I place it next to it. And the last one, of course, goes here. So now I have nicely arranged my 3 dough pieces on my baking sheet with a little space between them. Here too, the seam is now at the bottom, which is why I had it on top before. Here again, a quick test is shown. Press in once, it creates a dent. It comes back up slightly, but you can still see it. So the timing is just right. Now this is a very soft dough. Normally I take a knife and make a 1 centimeter cut 3 times like this or that. I can do this well with a knife if I only cut in this direction, but if I want to cut crosswise, it's a bit difficult. I'll make 3 cuts on this one. But here I'll use scissors. That works wonderfully as well. I cut it here and there. A little through, and I already have a cross pattern. This will later give a beautiful crust. A nice crispy, somewhat wild look on the bread. Yes, and that's actually all there is to it. Just as it is, it now goes in at 245. Now straight into the oven with steam, of course. It stays there for 10 minutes at that temperature. Then I lower the temperature to 215. Again for about 15 minutes. In total, I'm looking at 25 to 30 minutes here. It also depends a bit on your oven. So into the oven with it. The rye baguettes have now been in the oven for exactly 25 minutes. They have risen nicely. They have a relatively wild crust. As you can hear, they are well done. They smell wonderful. I can only recommend you to make them. As I said, they stay fresh for a long time, so you can enjoy them for a while. However, they don't last long. They are so extremely delicious, really very good, they won't last long. I hope you enjoyed our video. As always, you can find the recipe under our video description. I say thank you, have fun baking, and see you soon. See you next time on our channel. Goodbye.